Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Episode 25.
Yahoo.
And
Happy Valentine's Day. Aww.
This is why we're wearing red and pink.
Yes, it is. And we see some beautiful flowers.
And some beautiful flowers. So this episode is about depth over breadth.
So, sometimes we feel because of our school district or because of trying to meet all the state standards or trying to teach to a test that we've been asked to teach to, that we're trying to cover all of these topics.
Mm-hmm.
And if anything, golly, in a history class, that has got to seem like an insurmountable task, right?
It does. It's overwhelming, all the different
Right.
things we're supposed to cover.
Exactly. So, and I could say that in any class, whether it's literature or math or science, but gosh, to just skim the surface, there's certainly value in trying to know like a little bit of everything, but it's almost that idea of jack of all trades, you know a little bit of everything, but master of none, And so this idea, anyway, that's come to us is that as we've observed our kids do student-centered learning, they can go deeper, and there's perhaps a ton more value to that. And probably a big one is cultivating kids who can think, relate, and communicate.
Lifelong learning.
And lifelong learning, yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a pretty cool scenario for you.
Yeah, so in this episode, what you're going to see, this is my history class, U.S. history, and we were talking about monopolies, and we then got on the topic of Lizzie McGee and how the original Monopoly game was not at all what we know it to be today. It was actually called the Landlord's Game, and it was meant to be an anti-monopoly game. She was very, very upset with the way that her economy was running at that time. Then I posed the question to the students, could we come up with a game that was just as fun to play as Monopoly, but that was an anti-monopoly game? Because that's why Lizzie McGee's game died. And in fact, then changed to something that was obviously capitalist, because that was fun to play, to beat your opponent. And
competitive. That's the competitive nature
the competition is what made it fun. And so that was the question that I posed, and they all kind of scratched their head and came up with more versions of Monopoly. And so the next day I thought, you know what, we're going to do that as a warm-up. I'm just going to pose the question again and let's see what they come up with. And they eventually came up with a few of their own proposals. And then all of a sudden, one student actually just took out her phone and looked to see if there was something that had already been made. And lo and behold, there's a game out there called the Anti-Monopoly Game Socialism or something like that. I forget. You'll see it in the upcoming clips with the tagline, "Winning is for capitalists."
That's awesome.
And she showed this to me.
I didn't know that.
She showed it to me, and I thought, oh my goodness. So I went on Amazon and I bought it, and it came in like a couple of days later. And
it's amazing.
You're going to meet one of my aide in my class, and she happened to have a game at her home that the object of the game, is
right?
to work together.
Yeah.
So that also is sort of socialist-esque, if you will. And so we thought, you know what, we're just gonna keep following down this line here, where the intent wasn't necessarily to go really deep into socialism and communism and compare that to capitalism. But why not? The kids seemed very interested in that, and they were sort of owning the learning.
They owned it, and they directed the learning.
And they were very, very interested in learning more about it and really trying to understand what this all meant. And so I went with it, and we, rather than kind of keeping things a little more surface level, we went right into some serious depth. And so that's what you're getting ready to see. It starts out where it's in the warm-up stages, where they were trying to kind of come up with their own game. And then you'll see them actually playing the two games that we brought in. And then at the end, you're going to see a Socratic seminar style of debrief. This was my assessment of the knowledge that they had gained from playing the game. And so I think we'll debrief that at the end.
We'll talk about that. Yep.
So hope you enjoy.
Yes, we have a small, disclaimer.
Yes.
enjoy the process. We could get wrapped up a lot with talking a lot about political systems and political controversy and so on. But look at the process. Think about some of the things we just talked about with depth versus breadth, student-directed learning versus teacher-directed learning, student ownership. So look at the process, and also look in perhaps if anything, look at the safe atmosphere in which a lot of the gameplay and the conversations are being had. And I think you will be pleased by what you see. And again, we could all get caught up in let's say a political topic and not really see the meat of what is behind. I mean, the meat at the core that's within this lesson. So anyway,
right, yeah, and so I think what you're saying is, you know, for example, you're going to see I have a Trump poster from the 2016 election that just wound up in my room because a student found it and said, "Ooh, you know, you're our history teacher, you should have this in here," you know, and I have things from all different sides and points of view in this classroom, but it just had that poster seems to be abnormally blatant, if you will, because of the content. And so it doesn't matter if you are more left-leaning or more right-leaning or if you're somewhere in the middle. This episode isn't, we really want you to not focus necessarily on the content, but the way in which the content was learned and the depth at which it was then understood at the end. And also you'll notice that we have international students in this classroom who actually, some of them come from China. And so that has been such an enriching piece for our students to be able to hear that side and what it's like to live in China under a different kind of economy and government than we're used to. And for them, you know, in some ways to support it, in other ways to not support it, and for us to just have a very comfortable and meaningful conversation,
frank and transparent conversation, and like I said, in a safe way. I would say that any one of our international kids was very comfortable in the atmosphere.
Absolutely. So
okay, cool.
So watch this, and then we'll be back.
So we're talking about how, like, if we had a Monopoly game, a specific thing I would do is instead of this street names, like boardwalk and everything, and make it the streets of the houses that the monopolists lived on. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, so chance cards are like, you get 3 pounds.
How many types of
one from whoever. Yeah.
How many actual ingredients are there?
Well, it depends on sugar.
Let's just actually, no, we should plan it. Like,
well,
And then someone could like buy them out, and then once they're out, then like they're done with that operation, they have to get a new one because it's monopolized.
Properties are projects. Instead of buying properties in monopoly socialism, you are paying to manage and develop projects in our community.
Okay. This scares me. This really scares me because I feel like like everyone's trying to push us. Like minimum wage increase. Sucks to be a small business owner. Big
1,000.
The school needs new computers. Don't have kids? Tough luck.
Player receives
But
10 contribution
it's the
chips.
same thing as it is in America today, Jesse. Whether you have children or not, you still pay taxes to the school.
lotteries and
Yeah, true.
Your neighbor's son gets into college, our community covers tuition.
Or socialist too.
I hate this. This scares me. This scares me for our world.
Each person chooses
Like, what if our
10
world
one of
comes,
these
like, turns into
are we grouping?
everyone's screwed?
There are 2 ways the game can end. One, either a player has placed all 10 of their contribution chips onto any of the properties to like help contribute, build them up, or the community fund runs out and we go broke, then everybody loses. So either one person wins, or everybody loses.
oh my god.
If a player has no money and they need to pay for anything other than to get out of jail, they must take it from the community. So really, you can't really run out of money, because if you run out of money, then you just take it from the community.
Oh.
You seem to be doing too well for yourself. That's not how socialism works.
Yeah. 5, 6.
So, let's say you want to give a card to...
Read it out loud.
Tax time, socialism. We don't
You
have.
do that.
Oh.
You would pay for the
dang,
community.
dang. Socialism doesn't come cheap.
Yeah.
Hey,
So how much?
to who?
So that would be to the bank.
Guys, we're gonna run out of money right quick here. Come on.
If you want to.
Do it. 200.
So it's 200.
Whoa, whoa. Okay, that's my money too now. Let's relax.
Yeah, hold on. That's all the money. Now we need to make these decisions as a team
This
here.
whole community pool thing, I don't know.
How do you pay the bank if you don't personally have the money?
Make a loan.
No.
You.
What does it say?
Print money.
Fraud.
Making a loan is a capitalistic.
managed project. Where is that? Anyone?
How do we make money?
No one starts with money. Is all payments come out of the community fund.
So you should receive that, and that's where they get money.
From the wages.
Is that annoying?
Yeah.
Why is that annoying?
Because if I'm working, then I should be able to.
And
I want to manage my own gosh darn money. I don't know how to balance the
we
pay.
all against each other in this community.
Yes.
No, you're supposed to work together.
Oh, we're supposed to work together?
But I don't like it. Then what would be?
So then how is this a monopoly if we're working together? So
But I'm only slightly confused.
It's not Monopoly.
So if you have a lion and someone's like, shoot, and she's like, oh, I need a lion, you can be like, oh, like, I'll just give you the lion from over here, and be like,
But is that
lion.
50 to
Very helpful.
like?
So I just give that to them and do nothing? Yes.
Liam and I.
That's the whole point of like working.
Our chip is on
Okay,
this one.
okay.
Like, how do you pay the money back? You just don't pay back.
It's a community bank, so it's like our money. It's our money.
I don't know.
You don't have to earn the money. You can just take the money.
And if somebody lands on the business, how do you?
How do they pay us if we're all just taking out of
Community
there?
bank. Here, can I see it?
So
Project,
no matter what, if they land on it, we really don't make money.
That's the whole point of socialism. 'Cause
Anyone's
you're not-
money.
No one's making money. You're just passing it around.
Anyone's money is everyone's money.
This is stupid.
And
If it's just hard to get in the mind, like get out of the mindset of competition.
yes,
Kind of fun. I like it.
I hate it.
What's wrong with you, Jane?
Stop wasting our money, Matthew.
I'm going to self-develop.
It's not your turn. It's our money, Matthew.
Your neighbor claimed
Sure was him.
they were meditating on the job. You heard snoring. Remove another player's chip from any project card and return it to them.
Oh, oof.
Oh.
Hey, wait, remove your own.
Remove your own,
Be
brother.
socialist, remove your own.
Be socialist.
Come on, guys, that's our money.
It's the community.
Just take that, buy it. Whoa, bring it over here.
You could buy it, yeah. Not buy it.
We're managing it.
Question.
We're managing.
Managing.
What do you guys want me to shore up? Because I can fly anywhere. Do you want me?
Yeah, we should for sure shore up that one.
Two.
Okay, it doesn't matter. But if we, because so you're gonna collect the treasure, and then you'll already be there if we're ready to go. Because when she collects the treasure, we should all try to be.
How we have to work.
All right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
trade with her. Yeah. Okay.
So what is this game teaching us?
Anxiety.
Then you die.
Okay, I have 3 actions. What should I do?
That's not yours anymore. That's ours.
Oh, wow. We're winning.
It's not winning, Jen.
I can't. Wait. Can I just lift my whole team off and win?
Let's go.
You're not on Fool's Landing. None of you are on Fool's Landing.
Come on, guys.
Wait, okay, explain to me why you lost. What did you not do well?
Marcus drowned the tile that he was on.
But it's all Marcus's fault?
So if I land on it, the bank pays you and me.
And the community fund.
This is ours. Yeah, let's
Socialism, not
go.
capitalism.
And so remember, you guys don't have any money, so you would take money out of everybody's money.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's be jerks.
Oh my goodness.
You pay out of this?
Yeah, they did.
What does that mean? Tax and
Fund ourselves. We should do that.
Wait, say that again.
That's
I said.
very capitalistic of you.
Yeah. What did you say? I said let's just go around and not feed into any of the government things and collect money.
You didn't consult the community?
You didn't have
Way to not consult us.
You guys.
How much is this?
I'm not paying attention.
I'm not going on my homemade granola.
Remove another player's chip from any project card and return it to them.
Because what did they do wrong?
They bought a hot tub.
There's a hot tub in the neighbor. Is that a hot tub in the
If you have your own money, you must use that first before the
So we
community.
should just not make money.
Yeah.
Mine says
Rachel.
play this card. Son gets into college. Our community covers tuition. Thanks, socialism. Pay the bank $20 for the community. This is hilarious.
Hello. So, for those of you who don't know, this is Mrs. Pricky. She helps me in my classroom. She's amazing. So, for the last, I don't know, 3 classes, we've been playing 2 games that the intention of the game is to play together and not.
What is wrong with you?
That one back there. To play together and to not be in competition with one another.
First of all, they were trying to design a game where there wasn't a winner to kind of see can you make an anti-monopoly game, and they were having a hard time. So we came up with 2 different games that.
Well, and we didn't really. Like, one of the students looked it up and found it.
Right, the socialism one.
And you had one
in
your
house. And
house.
then our family has played Forbidden Island, where you all have to work to survive. There's no one winner. You either all die or all survive.
Right. Which is sort of the same thing as socialism. And so we have the class split between the 2 different games, and then they swap to learn how to play both games. And like one of the things that you were reflecting on in Forbidden Island, that the students are all listening to each other.
So cool to hear them strategize too. Like, wait, on your turn, if you move your piece to this certain island, then it'll help us on our next turn. And so they're having to know what each other's doing on their next turn. Yeah, so it was really cool to see them working together.
Taking competition out of games like takes a lot of the fun with it. Because there's like that friendly competition that's just like a ton of fun. And if you remove that, then it just kind of slows down.
What I found interesting was the island game was actually like fun to play.
Yeah.
Because you had to work together.
It was a
And
lot of
so
fun.
you did too kind of in the Monopoly.
Good.
But not really. And I think as soon as money was involved, we were all like, okay. Like, this is stupid. Like, there's no point.
I think so. I did see some like team work together, because since we're playing like Alexa and I, we were talking, oh, should we use this money? Like, I remember when we got into the jail, and we said we need to spend $50 and come out, and then everybody said no, we didn't. Right? Yeah.
I related it to like sports. So I think, it's you enjoy the game because like you enjoy playing a sport and being on a team, but it's always going to be more fun when you're good and when you're kind of playing for yourself and winning.
That's like what you guys said about that game too, is when someone messed up, it was like, oh, it was you.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is?
That's also,
We have
that's
that
kind of
line.
team sports too, yeah, like
What
they're in tennis there's singles and doubles. Right. And Ryan was my doubles partner, and if like he messed up, it was like and then I would mess up and it was like, well, it happened, you know. And that's kind of how that game was too.
Yeah.
It's human nature saying, finding someone else to blame, but yourself, or trying to shift blame to someone else when maybe both of you are fault.
The amount of money on the board never really changed unless you went, like for the amount of people that there were, the amount of money never changed. It was just passed around to different people. Like when in regular Monopoly, the amount of money fluctuates within the bank and within the people.
If everyone would just realize that we have that nature, if we knew like we're competitive people and we're selfish and we have sinful nature, like I said, like we instantly put the blame on someone else, then I feel like the light bulb should click and go, oh, this doesn't work.
We do realize that. It's just the fact that we don't
want to accept it.
Yeah,
almost
our
frowned
human
upon.
nature saying, our human nature says, we know we should do, yet don't do it for some reason.
Right, yeah.
It's like
We should be ashamed of it almost.
Basically, yeah. The Forbidden Island game, like at the end when everybody lost, like everyone was quick to go. Your fault.
So it's like the one person makes a mistake and then it's the downfall of everyone.
Exactly.
Do you think if someone from like Russia or China or like a communist country, that if they played that game, they would, I don't know, agree with it more than Monopoly?
That's funny that you say that, because the other day in public speaking, I was talking to Ihan, who's from China, where they have communism.
Yes.
And she was saying how there's we had to make a persuasive speech about anything we wanted, and I was like, oh, I'm going to talk about how socialism doesn't work. And then socialism and communism doesn't work, and she was like, well, yeah, but like there's good and bad to both. And how she was saying like a lot of it works, a lot of it doesn't work.
Then obviously they're going to play this game and go, yeah, this is exactly why it doesn't work. But if you get the government officials,
all the money working together to benefit the community maybe helped us learn a little bit about socialism.
Then again, we weren't like talking to each other.
Yeah.
Asking like, is this good for the community? We were just like,
It was hard to get out of that mindset.
You didn't really work together.
Yeah. So that's why I was saying.
We had moments where we landed on cards and we were like, could the town use this or would the town need this? Like, for example, we landed on a coffee shop and we were like, no, we're not going to buy it because like you don't necessarily need to live with a coffee shop. But we did buy the hospital. That came straight from the community funds.
So there were some community decisions.
Yeah.
Okay.
It started running really low for the community fund, and it kind of freaked me out because I was like, how much do we have left?
So do you think, remember, coming back to that question.
And, I mean, technically even North Korea, they still have a parliament.
Capitalism is gambling, as to like communism is like no risk taking.
Yeah, sure. But that's how like we're raised. Like you have to, you work for what you do. You work. Sometimes you get fired. Sometimes you don't get the job.
And you have to take
risks in order to get what you think you need. And that's that goes back to what our chapel speaker was talking about.
Whenever someone actually purchased like land or something, everyone got mad because they were like, we don't need to buy this. Like, there's no point because you're just taking from that, and now we're gonna lose. Yeah. But like without buying like the land or whatever, you couldn't like place your chips, and there's no point in the game. Yeah. But then like no one could work together. It was just weird.
Maybe that resembles like what actual communism is. It's super hard to actually get ahead in life.
Cool. Yeah, everyone's at the same level, trying to get ahead. And also I think it says like about human nature that like we're all so selfish, you know, like we just want to be ahead. Like we don't want to be at the same level as everyone else. Like we want to be better. We want people to be below us, and so we get annoyed whenever we have to help others out. Maybe if they are just slacking and we're like, okay, like that's annoying, and I have to give money so that you can buy a house when like I want to buy a better house.
It also shows how you need infrastructure and money in the first place to be able to switch to socialism or communism. Because without those, you're basically just going to collapse if you're trying to build those right from the ground.
In communism, no one is supposed to be able to get ahead of anyone else. And so, since you can't, and so since it's set up in such a way to where you can't get ahead of everyone else, it really just kind of builds up the government versus helping out everyone else. Like if you figure out a way that like you make more money, that's just going to feed back into the government and not necessarily come out and help everyone else out.
Hey,
hi.
Welcome back.
Hope you enjoyed that. Hopefully, you didn't kind of get upset about what you saw, and hopefully you had a lot of laughs and you saw the intent of this, which is the students going deep into their knowledge and really being able to then speak and to articulate what it is that they learn and connect that you heard that they connected that to outside sources. And that's really, that's like the level 4 type of learning in like, if you were to do the depth of knowledge or if you were to go with the Bloom's taxonomy or something like that.
Something that struck me, what the kids in your classroom are very organic about the way in which they carry on their conversations. They arrange themselves on their own. You don't tell them, hey, you don't tell them how to arrange their chairs or anything, right?
Actually.
Okay.
So you're all probably familiar with the Socratic method, and oftentimes the shape of that takes a circle so that everyone is considered sort of equal and everyone has something important to say. I have found over the years that that doesn't always work where your entire class is in a circle. Even if you're rotating it out and you have the inner and the outer circle, I have found that sometimes that inhibits your students who aren't your aren't as comfortable with speaking as fast, or maybe they're comfortable with speaking, but it takes them a little longer to come up with a thought type of deal. That's me, actually. And so I've actually devised my own twist on the Socratic seminar in my class, where I have the students self-assess whether they're a bee or a butterfly.
Okay.
So where that comes from is Muhammad Ali, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee.
Okay.
And so I say, are you a bee or are you a butterfly in your way of being able to articulate orally?
And
what
so
it is you have to
you
say?
allow those two groups to self-identify and then operate out of their giftings. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, and you have some students who are always in this group and always in this group, and then you have students who say, not today. I'm going to the other side.
Cool.
And that's totally fine. And that gives them the opportunity to whether they think quickly or not, or that kind of thing. So,
but this is their preferred style in your classroom. That is the way they want to be assessed, and they ask to be assessed, right?
They love it.
And like I said, it happens organically. So you guys can just be talking about even a warm-up, and this is how they want to engage the warm-up. You played a game. This is how they want to debrief the game. I mean, so that is just something that's become very natural for them.
And do know, though, that students in my class do a lot of writing, too.
They do.
So this is just my way to be able to differentiate how I'm going to assess them. So we don't, we don't always want to have them be writing, and we don't always want them to be talking. We need to be able to give students, different modes of being able to show us what they know.
That's so fantastic. I love it.
So,
how about the two games? Which one do you think was more effective?
I think they were both effective, but in different ways. The one was, they were both effective because they both very quickly learned that they would throw each other under the bus. And that teamwork, and you noticed that I kind of panned the camera over to what was on the whiteboard about the two big essential questions that we were looking at, and they were up there all week as we went through this. Is socialism actually sustainable? And so we talk about this is a private Christian school, so we can work in our understanding of what God tells us, that communism really in its purest form really is the best way to be, and that is how God is going to come back at the end of the world. It is going to be a dictatorship in a communist society. And so we talk about that communist, in its purest form, really is a wonderful thing to have, but because of our human nature and our sin, it's not sustainable.
And our selfishness.
Yeah, even though we really would like to have a goal of a utopia, we can't. And so they quickly learned that because you saw instantly it's Marcus's fault that we died.
Right, or it's just easier to just why bother earning money? I mean, it's just why even bother? And so they learned through that really fast through both games.
Both games.
Wow, that's incredible.
So their knowledge went deeper through that, through not just the game, but also interacting with their peers and learning very quickly that if there is no competition, why should we play?
So there's key components here. There's the pre-assessment piece, if you will, and then the actual inquiry with the game. And then probably the most important component is the assessment on the end, which you give multiple ways in which they can display that.
Right.
I think that's stellar. I mean, that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, I mean, their pre-assessment was a warm-up. They could not really articulate how to come up with the game because they didn't quite really understand how it all worked.
Right.
And then once they played the game, they figured it out themselves.
They're like, oh yeah, yeah.
Rather than me, none of that really matters. Doesn't really sink in.
Gosh, that's awesome. And I love how the kids directed that way to it. So it took you longer to do that.
It did.
But you wouldn't trade it for anything.
Oh, I would not. What a loss it would have been if I had just given them a lecture and moved on. They really soaked in what they learned. And you even heard one student took that understanding and went to their public speaking class and is devising his own persuasive speech on it. So that's the goal, is to develop lifelong learning and a love of learning and the ability to apply what they've learned in your classroom somewhere else.
And to interact with human beings.
Oh,
right? So again,
21st century skill.
Again, let's take our international kids as an example. So the same kid who took that into public speaking, he had an interaction, a positive interaction with one of our international kids, and learned more about their humanity, about where they're living, and opened up his eyes to other people in this world. So I think there's an extreme value here of interacting with other human beings in such a way in which we're becoming far more than just self-aware, but becoming other-aware, and we've got to do that.
Yeah, we
really
absolutely do. So,
well, we love our kids. If you can't tell, we love our kids. We adore our kids. We think our kids are, I don't know, are just really good people. But we also know that they're, I don't know, what am I trying to say? I just am really proud with how they dialogued about such a hard topic.
Yeah,
I am really, really proud of them. And I guess maybe what I'm saying is, yeah, I'm prejudiced about our kids because I love them. But I am really proud with how they dialogued.
I think one of the
and
things
interacted
that
with each other.
You're really proud of is in my butterfly group, we have some students who have difficulty, maybe more than other students, in being able to articulate what they say. And so that is such a special, special thing when we can see those students thriving and being able to, in this inclusive school, and therefore in this inclusive classroom, to be able to engage with their peers and to provide meaningful conversation, add to the conversation, and to be heard.
Yeah. So look for a future episode. We are going to talk about accommodations and modifications in an upcoming vlog, and we're really excited about that one too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Until then, we'll see you next week.
Okay. Peace.